So what is special about this problem is that for the very first time, we will see a problem that has two states. Okay, so actually we may have more than one states, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But so far we have only seen problems that have one state only. So now we're going to see that we may have two states. And then another thing about this problem is that we see that the aspect 2 of this problem equals 0, which means that the cost or the revenue for all the periods before the final period is 0. So we don't have any cost or any revenue before the very final period of the problem. So how can that happen? So let's see in this problem. In this example, Farmer Jones now has $5,000 in cash and 1,000 bushels of wheat. So bushel is a unit of volume for dry goods. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I always think that it's a unit of volume. Okay. So what he must decide is how many bushels of wheat to buy or sell during each month. So that is his decision. However, there are 3 restrictions on each month's wheat transaction. So first, of course, the amount of money that he spent must not exceed the cash on hand that he has at the beginning of the month. Also, if he is going to sell the wheat, obviously he cannot sell more than he has at the beginning of the month. And then the third one, because of the limited capacity, the ending inventory of wheat cannot exceed 1,000 bushels. Okay, so to summarize the problem, Farmer Jones must decide how many bushels of wheat to sell or buy each month. However, he cannot use more money than he has, he cannot sell more wheat than he has, and he cannot have more than 1,000 bushels at the end of the month in the warehouse. Now his objective is to maximize the amount of cash at the end of 6 months. Okay, so pay attention to the objective. Maximum the amount of cash on hand at the end of 6 months. As usual, we start by thinking about the 3 aspects of the recursions in the dynamic programming. In the first aspect, we ask, what are the allowable decisions? Here, the decision is how many bushels of wheat to buy or to sell each month. So in other words, aspect 1 asks us about what is the restriction, how many at most we can buy and how many at most we can sell. Okay, so that is what we are going to achieve by defining aspect 1. First of all, let's define this notation, delta WT, which means the change in wheat at month T. And then just for our convention, delta WT, if it is positive, it means that we purchase wheat at month T. If it is less than 0, it means that we sell wheat. If it is exactly equals 0, it means that we don't either sell or buy the wheat. Okay. Now to have the limit, how much we can sell, how much we can buy, let's look at these 3 restrictions. The first one specifically say that the amount of money that we spent on wheat cannot exceed the cash on hand at the beginning of the month. So if our money at the beginning of this month is CT, it means that we can't use more money than CT. The money that we use happens, or we spend money when we want to buy wheat, right? So let's formulate how much we buy and what is the price and the relation with the cash. So here it is. The price of the wheat is PT, let's say per bushel. And then delta WT, if it is positive, it means the number of bushels of wheat that we purchase. So on the left hand side is the amount of money that we spent to buy the wheat. It must not exceed, or it must be less than or equals to the cash that we have at the beginning of the month. So let's give some numbers to illustrate this inequality. So let's say your money at the beginning of the month is 32, and then the price of wheat at that month is 5. So this inequality says that at most you can buy 6 bushels, because 5 times 6 less than equal to 32. If you want to buy 7, it is not allowed, because 5 times 7 equals 35, which exceeds the amount of money that you have at the beginning of this month. But you may wonder, what about selling wheat? Well, the first restriction here does not really restrict how much you can sell. Because let's say you have 10 bushels and then you want to sell them all. Based on this inequality, it is okay to do that, because 5 times anything negative will always be less than the cash that you have. Even if the cash is 0, 5 times or the price times anything negative will always satisfy this inequality. So the first restriction here, the first inequality, only says that the amount of money that we use to buy the wheat must not exceed the cash that we have at the beginning of the month. Just to make everything neat, we move PT to the right hand side, such that on the left hand side we only have delta WT, because delta WT is our decision. So we would like to see the limit of our decision. We have seen that the first constraint gives us the limit on how much we can buy the wheat. Now the second constraint is the one that limits us in selling the wheat. So the first one is specifically gives us the limit on purchasing the wheat. The second one specifically gives us the limit on selling the wheat. So obviously we can't sell more wheat than we have at the beginning of the month. So WT is the wheat that we have at the beginning of the month. So notice the difference. Delta WT means the wheat we buy or sell at the month T. WT only without delta means that the wheat that we have at the beginning of the month. Okay, so the second constraint says that the amount of wheat that we sell must be greater than or equal to minus WT. If this doesn't seem logical at first, let's put some numbers to illustrate why this constraint is actually logical. Let's say you have 10 bushels of wheat at the beginning of the month. So this is WT. And then this constraint says that you can sell 10 bushels of them. So you sell everything that you have, which means that delta WT equals minus 10, right? You can also choose to sell just 9 of them, 9 out of 10 bushels that you have. So delta WT equals minus 9. You sell 8 of them is also allowed. You sell 7 of them is also allowed, which means delta WT equals minus 8 or delta WT equals minus 7. So in other words, delta WT is allowed to be greater than or equals to minus 10. Remember that minus 9, minus 8, minus 7 is greater than or equals to minus 10, right? So you cannot have delta WT equal minus 11 in this case, because minus 11 is less than minus 10. Okay, so you can only sell minus 10, minus 9, minus 8, and so on. Just convince yourself that this numbers -9 -8 is greater than or equals to -10. And another note here is that in this example, it is assumed that you can't buy and sell the wheat during the month. So you can't buy something at this month and then sell it again immediately at the month. No, you can only sell what you have at the beginning of the month, which is WT. Now for the third restriction, it says that at the end of the month, we can't have more than 1,000 bushels of wheat in our warehouse. So it means that whatever we buy, whatever we sell, at the end of the month, we can't have more than 1,000 bushels. So let's see, this is WT is the amount of wheat that we have at the beginning of the month. And then delta WT is the change, and then the sign is plus, such that if you purchase, the total amount will be increased. If you actually sell the wheat, then this will be negative, and then you will decrease the wheat. Okay, you decrease the total amount of wheat that you have. So the sum of what you have at the beginning plus your transaction must be less than or equals to 100. Same as before, just to make everything neat, I move the WT to the other side. So now we have these three restrictions, and then we put them together. So here goes to the left hand side, and then the other two goes to the right hand side. And then because on the right hand side we have two constraints, we always have to pick the minimum. So in other words, the amount of wheat that we purchase must be the minimum between the limitation of the cash that we have or the capacity of the warehouse. So in other words, let's say you have a lot of cash, you can buy a lot of wheat, but your warehouse is already full, then you can't buy that much, right? Or you can only buy 0 because the warehouse is already full. Or if the warehouse is still empty, but you don't have any cash, obviously again, then you can't buy any wheat, right? That's why you put the minimum between these two restrictions here. Okay, so that is the aspect 1 that shows how much we can sell and how much we can buy wheat at month T. For aspect 2, because the objective is we want to maximize the amount of cash on hand at the end of month 6, it means that the cash that we have is just, the cash that you have in month 1, you just take it to month 2 and then do the transaction and everything, and then take it to month 3, month 4, month 5, and so on until at month 6. That is what you would like to maximize. In other words, we do not have any benefit during months 1 through 5. So during months 1 to 5, what we do, as I said before, we just do the bookkeeping to keep track of our cash position. So this is very important. Maybe at this point you're still not sure what this really means, but we will see later, just a bit later in the recursion, that during months 1 to 5, we have 0 cost or benefit or revenue or anything. We just say that we have this much money, we do something, so that becomes the cash position for the next month. So keep this in mind. This is what is very important about this example. And then for aspect 3, we see that at the beginning, the problem says Farmer Jones has $5,000 in cash and 1,000 bushels of wheat. And these two are really important information, right? If you know the cash, but you don't know how much wheat you have, you can't really make a logical decision, right? You can't say how much you may sell because you don't know how much wheat you have. And then you can't say how much you are going to buy because you don't know how many bushels of wheat you have. On the other hand, if you don't know the cash, you also cannot make a good decision. So in this example, we have two states. Again, this is an important characteristic of this example. So the state is CT and WT. So you write it down with a comma, CT, comma, WT. Okay. So CT is the amount of cash that you have at the beginning of month T. WT is the amount of wheat that you have at the beginning of month T. Aspect 3 asking about if this is the state at the beginning of month T, what happens at the beginning of the state T plus 1? Well, it is obvious that first our wheat will change as many as delta WT. If this is positive, it means we are going to increase our wheat. If that is negative, it means that the amount of wheat will decrease. Okay, and then for the cash, it will be CT, the cash that we have at the beginning of the month, minus W times P. So if W is positive, it means we buy the wheat, the cash position will go down. If W is selling the wheat, this is negative, it means we are going to increase our cash position at the month T plus 1. So here is the recursion function at the very last month, month 6. So because this is the very last month and we want to maximize the cash on hand at the end of this month, the only reasonable decision is that we just sell all the wheat that we have, such that the cash that we have is the cash that we already have at the beginning of the month, plus the cash that we obtain from selling the wheat at the price P6. Okay, so F6 is the maximum cash at the end of year 6 if at the beginning of year 6 we have C6 cash and W6 bushels of wheat. This is the cash that we already have at the beginning of the year, and that is the cash that we earn from selling all the bushels of wheat that we have at the price P6. There's no point to keep the wheat because we want to maximize the cash on hand, and this is already the end of the problem. Now for the stage T before 6, this is the recursion. So notice here I have a 0 here and then I have an exclamation mark because at the stage T before the stage 6, we just say that this is the cash that we have at the beginning of the month, and then this is the cash that we have at the beginning of month T plus 1. So you just write down your cash position, changing from this CT at the beginning of this month to become that at the beginning of next month. Same thing for WT, you just write the change from T to T plus 1. So FT is the maximum cash at the end of year 6 if at the beginning of year T we have CT cash and WT bushels of wheat. And this is 0 because all the cash that we earn from selling the wheat or all the cash that we spend, we simply just record it for your cash position, because your goal is to maximize the cash at the year 6. So at any year which is not year 6, you don't really earn anything. right? Because what you want to have, or what you want to maximize, is the cash at the end of year 6. If you put something there, it means that you double count the cash that you earn, because you say your cash is increased at the beginning of the next year. If you also put something there, then how does it possible, right? Your cash increase at the next year, but you also earn something that is separated from your cash position at the next year. It just doesn't make sense. Whatever changes in your cash and whatever changes in your wheat is already recorded at this stage. So you should not and must not write down anything there. Okay? So that is the bushels position at the beginning of next year, and that is the cash position next year. Okay, and then keep in mind that the allowable WT is here in this orange box, and then among all possible delta WT, all possible delta WT, among all possible values of them, we would like to find that maximize the cash at the end of year 6. I keep on emphasizing at the end of year 6 to let you get the sense that why we write down 0 here, because what we want to do is maximum the cash at year 6. So at any year before the year 6, we don't earn anything at the stage itself. Whatever we earn is recorded for the next stages. Okay, to summarize, the stage is year T from 1 to 6. We have two states, the cash at the beginning of the year, CT, and the wheat at the beginning of the year, WT. How can we know that we need to have two states? Well, because to make a reasonable decisions, you really need these two information. If you only have cash, you can't make a reasonable decision. If you only have the information of wheat, you can't make reasonable decision either. So that's how you know that you need these two information as the states. Decision is delta WT. If it is positive, we buy the wheat. If it is negative, we sell the wheat. For the recursion at year 6, we have the cash C6 plus we sell all the wheat that we have. Before the year 6, the aspect 2 or the stage T itself returns 0 in revenue, cost, and everything, because whatever we earn, whatever changes, will be recorded for the next stages. Okay, and this is the aspect 1 that you must write it down. Okay, so that's the end of this example. You really need to think carefully and realize, especially at this place, why it is 0 for aspect 2 in this example. So that's the end of the video. Thank you and see you on the next one.